The Nobels ODR1 has become one of those pedals that is kind of like the best kept or worst kept secret in the guitar industry. It's become known as the Nashville sound, and it's this sort of low to medium gain overdrive pedal which does throw the word transparent around a lot, which again is a bit of a buzzword in the guitar circle. A transparent overdrive doesn't really mean a lot, because for something to be truly transparent, it needs to do nothing at all. But obviously being a pedal, it's going to do something to your tone. The ODR1 is a firm favorite of many of the top Nashville session players, and it has in recent years started to branch out to a more diverse guitar market. Wampler have come out with the Belle. This is Brian Wamplers' take on that classic Nashville circuit. So Brian did feel that the original ODR1 was a little bit too hi-fi sounding, so he's gone in and done his own thing like he does with a lot of classic circuits and come up with the Belle. The guys at Wampler very kindly sent me the Belle to check out. I'm not getting paid for this video, but they have given me this pedal, which I do love. So with the Belle being Brian Wamplers' take on the classic ODR1, you can expect a few of his own little characteristics in there as well. The first thing he's done is break out the tone circuit a little bit. So the original ODR1 had a single tone control which was labeled Spectrum. What Brian has done is he's added the additional bass control to this. So we've got a bass control and a color control. So the bass control obviously controls the amount of low end in the circuit, but the color control doesn't just function as a regular tone control. This is actually quite a unique feature to this particular circuit. If you dial it left or right, what you're basically doing is boosting or cutting the high and lows, but leaving the mid-range well alone. So even though this pedal is labeled as transparent, there is obviously going to be a little bit of movement in the mid-range because that's predominantly where the guitar lives. So anything we do to our guitar is going to affect the mid-range slightly, but it's definitely less mid-humped than something like a Tubescreamer. So the cool thing is These two controls are designed to really help you sculpt your tone. So if you don't want too much high end, you can use the color control to dial that back, but you can retain your lows by pushing the bass control up to push those low frequencies back into the mix. This circuit isn't a gain monster. It's not designed as a high gain pedal. In fact, there's very little gain on tap here at all. Even with the gain maxed, you can just sort of get into like a sort of moderate crunch tone where you could probably play some classic rock. But where this thing is really happy is when it's pushing an amp. If that's not enough for you though, the typical voice of this is pretty smooth. Brian has added a little switch on the side which changes the clipping diodes. So the default with the switch in the out position is like a smooth clipping. So this is the typical ODR1 sound. And if you push that in, you get asymmetric clipping, which just gives you a little bit more bite, a little bit more kind of high-end presence there, and it makes the attack a bit spikier as well. The Belle works great with single coils and humbuckers. In fact, the bass control with single coils is a fantastic pairing because we all know that single coils tend to lack the low-end punch of humbuckers. You can actually use the bass control to really fatten up your Strat and Tele sounds, and if you're playing with like a 335 or a Les Paul, you can dial that back a bit and retain some of those brighter tones. It's great across all genres, so it's obviously designed as like a Nashville country kind of vibe, great for blues, and you can really push it into classic rock as well. It also stacks with other gains very well, and whatever amp you put it into, it sort of retains the amp's character. That's where the transparent thing comes from. It doesn't change the amp sound too much, but it does obviously impart its own voice on things as well. So let's get this thing plugged in and hear what it sounds like. The guitar I'm using in this video is my early 1980s Tokai Strat. This is a made in Japan guitar, and it's currently loaded with a set of Righteous Sound Redwood pickups, which were custom wound for me based on that 63-64 Strat type sound. This is plugged into my Cool amplification Blue Sky, which is completely clean, and that's going via the 2 Notes Captor X, which is running an IR of a Fender Bassman style cab. And the reverb you're hearing is coming from the Surfy Industries Surfy Bear Classic Spring reverb, which is on top of the amp back there. And there's also a little bit of room reverb coming from the Captor X as well. So here's how the amp sounds completely clean with the Strat. So you can hear it's a very, very flat place to start out with. So I'm actually just going to start with everything on the Belle set to 12 o'clock. I'm just going to play a bit and then I will just tweak all of the controls as we go. I'm going to move through the different pickup positions on the guitar as well. you hear the huge range on this thing, from like a clean boost right up to some higher gain stuff. Obviously it doesn't do that super high gain, but it does give you a nice bluesy bite. Now what I think is really cool, like I mentioned, is the use of the bass control. So if I'm playing on the bridge single coil on a Strat, I can boost that bass control and dial that color back a little bit and still get quite a fat sound. Which is something you don't often get from a Strat, so this could be a really cool tonal shaping pedal for someone who just gigs with one guitar. It's great if you're doing a gig and you've only got a Strat with you and you need to get into some sort of humbuckery kind of tones. You could use this pedal stacked with other gain pedals to really fatten up the tone. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the addition of the bass control there. I definitely think this is a great pedal for single coil use. All right, now for some humbucker tones, I'm going to be using my Stanford Guitars Crossroad Marquee. This is a Les Paul style guitar on the visual front, but it's actually a semi-hollow, so it sort of sounds kind of more like an ES335 kind of vibe. It's got some vintage style PAF pickups in there as well. So I'm just going to play a bit on the clean channel, and then I'm just going to kick on the Belle, which I've currently got set, as you'll see, with everything to midnight, and then I'll just tweak and see where we go. So those tone controls are very, very responsive with humbuckers as well as single coils. Obviously you can see that the bass control is less useful when you've got humbuckers because you don't need that additional low end. If you've got the bass pumped all the way up and the color's pretty low, it can get pretty boomy pretty quick even on the bridge pickup. Obviously that's not a bad tone, it's just there's a lot of low end content going on there. Where I would probably use this with humbuckers is with the bass maybe about halfway and the color just pushed a little bit. That just gives a nice little top and mid-range boost. That's a really great setting, I think. Obviously you can get a bit too toppy if you push that color all the way. It does get very bright. Probably wouldn't use it in too much of the extreme settings, and you can see even when I was playing with the gain control on full, this still isn't a super gainy pedal. So you're not going to get any sort of crushing drive tones from this thing. It's just a nice bluesy rock tone, great for sort of pushing an amp, stacking with other pedals, or using as a nice sort of mild sounding overdrive. I'm a big fan of the Belle. I've had this now for a couple of months and I've been gig testing it very, very heavily, and it's very quickly becoming one of my go-to drive pedals. I think Wampler have done an incredible job sort of revoicing that classic ODR1 sound, putting a few of their own tweaks in there. Now the only thing I haven't shown you is the difference between smooth clipping and asymmetric clipping. So up to this point in the video, everything you've heard has been smooth clipping, so I'm just going to play a little bit now with the gain about there, and I'm just going to switch between the smooth clipping mode with this switch out and the asymmetric with the switch in. So you can hear when I engage the asymmetric clipping and it just gets a little bit brighter, a touch louder, and the gain kind of becomes, I don't want to use the term harsher, but there's a bit more bite to it. It's a bit brighter, and yeah, it just kind of cuts a little bit more. I personally prefer it on the smooth setting, but the asymmetric clipping is great if you just want that little bit more push from it. That would also be great if you're stacking it with a dark drive pedal or you're going into a darker sounding amp. So there you go, there is the Wampler Belle. What a cool take that is on the classic Nashville circuit. The ODR1 tone is actually something that's relatively new to me. I've known of the tone for a while and obviously heard other people using it, but I've only recently started experimenting with ODR style pedals in my own rig in probably the last 6 months. The Wampler Belle is definitely a contender for one of my favorites. I love it. I've been using it a lot for gigs and it's definitely proving very, very reliable and very consistent night after night. And obviously with it being a Wampler, you know these things are built like tanks. It's not going to break on you. It's not going to fall apart after 2 or 3 gigs. It's built to last. So yeah, check one of these things out. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And while you're down there doing that, don't forget to hit the like and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for watching.